Okay, so we looked at things from the employee's perspective, from the manager's perspective. Again, a lot of it's change management, looking at these techniques, and when you know how to do those, implementing those. Now we're going to look at it from the practitioner perspective. So people who actually have done this, have worked with these tools and concepts for a bit. So you guys know who Jim Lovell is? Have you guys seen the movie Apollo 13?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Aggie's looking at me with a blank look, and those are the only two faces I see. So again, some more faces are better. So Apollo 13 was the mission where they had a problem, and the Houston, we have a problem, and they were supposed to go and land on the moon, and they couldn't land on the moon. Jim Lovell was the commander of that mission. He had been in space 3 times previously. He was supposed to be like the third man to walk on the moon, or maybe the fifth man. 11, 12, yeah, 13. He was Apollo 13. And so it's a good movie. It's based on fact. There's a lot of reality to it. They've done some things to compress it into a movie, but it's an actual thing that happened. And it's pretty harrowing when it was actually ongoing, but they got the astronauts home safe, although they did not make the landing on the moon. So Jim Lovell is a retired astronaut, does a lot of speaking and stuff. And he said there's 3 kinds of people: those that watch what happened, those that make things happen, and those that wonder what the heck did happen. So I kind of like that. So you can be part of watching what happens. You can be part of making what is happening, or you can be kind of out to lunch and just wonder what's going on around you. And I would encourage you, when it makes sense, to be part of the making things happen. Sometimes you start out by watching and then you join in to do that, but you want to be able to do that. And then position Lean and Six Sigma in the organization to be successful. So people that know how to do this, they actually work to actively put the tools in the place and set the table so that implementing Lean and Six Sigma will be successful in the organization. But you do need some infrastructure and some support. You don't just say, hey, guess what, guys, as of January, we're all going to be a lean organization. Here's a book, or here's some slides, and have fun. We'll see you in January. It doesn't really work like that. So there are sponsors involved. Sponsors usually come at the executive level. They are invested in the Lean and Six Sigma philosophy, concept, activities. They are there to help align the Lean and Six Sigma projects with the strategies and the goals of the organization at that time period. They are the public support for a lot of the things that are going on, and that the public support for the activities that are needed to implement, and then the activities that the organization actually adopts, and the projects that they take on. They are charged with really communicating the advantages, the benefits, the importance of why a company is undergoing a Lean and Six Sigma initiative, change, upgrade, whatever. And they really are looked at as the people to describe what can be. So what is our desired state? Where are we going? Where can we go? And what does it look like if we actually become a Lean Six Sigma organization? So those are the executive sponsors, and they usually come from very high levels of the company. Owners, if they're smaller businesses, key C-level type jobs, if it's a corporation, or just a bigger organization. So the people at the top. And then you have project sponsors. And these are the people that say, this is what I need to happen in this area. So it might be like the director or the VP of ops who says, we really need to make this production line more efficient, more effective. And so I'm going to sponsor a team that is going to go work on that. So they become the overseer of that. They provide direction and guidance. And again, they do help paint the picture for what they're looking for, but they don't tell the team how to do it. They don't get involved in the day-to-day activities of that team, but they are an oversight layer of that. They are the go-between between the senior execs and the that are providing money and resources and that can provide more if and as needed, and the team that is actually implementing and doing the work. So they make sure that the team has a good charter and defines the project correctly. So we talked a little bit about this when we talked about the DMAIC model, the D part. It's really, really important to spend time defining the problem so that you don't just define the symptoms that you're having. And we use that word symptom like medical people. So if you say, what's wrong? Oh, I don't feel good. Okay, what's wrong? And you say, oh, I have a fever and my stomach hurts. So those are your symptoms. There's about 200 different things that can cause any one of us to have a stomach ache and a headache at the same time, right? It can be that I ate too much turkey at Thanksgiving. It can be that I ate fast food that's not agreeing with me. It can be that I have an ulcer or some other kind of thing. It can be, lots and lots of different things. Some very serious, some just you need a nap after you ate too much turkey at Thanksgiving. But we're really looking for defining that project, that issue, that problem in the right level of detail and specificity, not so that you create the solution, but that you really frame the problem so that when you start doing the measuring, the analyzing, and the improving, that you're actually getting to that root cause and you're going to get a result that is going to fix the main problem and not just put a Band-Aid on the symptoms. So the sponsor really helps make sure that the team is digging hard enough and working on that definition so that we get a problem well defined so that they can get a comprehensive, robust solution to that. They help identify stakeholders. They are in the review sessions, not in all the team meetings, but they are part of the review, which is probably done on a weekly, bi-weekly, at least monthly basis. But I would say at first it's going to be probably a weekly meeting, and it doesn't have to be an hour long. It can be a 20-minute meeting where the team meets with the sponsor and maybe one of the champions and says, hey, this is what's going on. Here's where we are. We're on track. We're off track. And we need some help here, or this is working really well. Everything's going, and we expect to be done 2 weeks early. So whatever the issues are. So they're a key stakeholder by themselves, and they help identify other key stakeholders that might need to be included. They help remove obstacles, provide resources. They help keep the team focused and engaged and make sure that the team is working together properly and has the right mix of that. Usually we have cross-functional teams. So if they need somebody, for example, from the finance department, the sponsor is the one that goes and talks to the head of finance or accounting and says, hey, we need a numbers person on this team. So they go get that person for them. They are a cheerleader. So they celebrate the successes. They encourage the team. They, keep everyone apprised of what's happening so that they support and vocal about, this is the team, this is what they're doing great stuff, this is going to be a good result, and all this kind of stuff. They help with the budgets, they make sure that there are rewards and recognition for the entire team once the benefits are achieved and they've got the things in place, they've got the controls in place and whatever, and they can do incremental rewards along the way, which is a very smart strategy to do to keep people incented, interested, involved, and all that. And they are also the ones that are responsible for pulling the plug and saying, you know what, this is not going to get us to where we need to be. So we can't solve this problem, or this problem has changed and this is the issue, and we are going to pull the resources from that and no longer pursue that path. So that's a lot of responsibility. But that's what happens sometimes. You have to be able to pull the plug and say, we're not getting where we need to be, and we don't need to keep spending money that is not giving us progress toward a better solution or a key comprehensive solution. So typically they use the word toll gate reviews, which is just an incremental status update. They do this throughout the DMAIC process. So they don't wait until, oh, here's our definition, now let's go present it. No, but when they say, okay, we're roughing this out, here's what we're seeing, here's how we're defining it, then you have reviews, again, incrementally, to make sure that people are the key overseers, including your sponsor and anybody else who might have a vested interest, is reviewing the progress and making sure that you stay on track, and not wait till you've patted yourself on the back and say, oh, well, we got a great project definition here. And you go before that board and they say, you guys aren't even close. This isn't what we ask you to do at all. So you want to make sure that you're involved and you're walking along the way with them, but not doing the work, not giving them too much oversight, micromanaging, but making sure that you're communicating with them about the needs of the organization and what your vision for the goal of the project is. So you're a good sounding board for doing dry runs on the presentation of the main project, because typically some of these projects will go up before senior level executives at some point, or maybe monthly. So you might meet with the sponsor every week, and then once a month you go and see the CEO and his staff or her staff, and then the sponsor might be charged with or be involved to help you put the right slides together so that the story that you tell the CEO and his or her staff is good, is crisp, is answering their kinds of questions and anticipated questions. Because we all know that there's different styles, right? So some people like a lot of detail. Some managers like to see a lot of detail. Some managers just want you to cut to the chase and don't give me all the detail. They want you to have it in case they have a question and they start digging down. And as a presenter, you want to do that. But there's nothing worse than being a presenter who has lots and lots of detail to share, and everybody's bored and starting to pick up their phones and doing different things. I mean, you've lost your audience. You need to go back to, here's why we're here, here's the things. Other times you brought high level slides and you've got 5 slides and you've got a bunch of people who are engineers and like to see the detail, and they're just peppering you with questions about, well, what analysis did you do here? What did this tell you? What's the report on this? So it's not, the sponsor can help read that audience and help you prepare so that you've got the right level of detail, the right level of backup, and that your presentation is thorough and successful to the higher ups that need to see that. Sponsors also are always asking questions, always checking, always challenging, again, in a positive way, to make sure that you get a result that is comprehensive and is going to be a big win for the organization. And they also ask, what do you need? What's not working? Where do you need extra resources? Or what's blocking your progress, and that kind of thing. So they're asking questions about how they can help the team achieve the goals. We talked, this whole semester about Lean and Six Sigma, but I know as well as anybody that Lean and Six Sigma is not always the right solution. And sometimes the solution is Lean itself. Sometimes it's really a Six Sigma statistical problem that you've got to really do a lot of work on that, a lot of measuring, a lot of control charts, a lot of things like that. But you need to find out what the right solution is. And it's very situational. It always depends on the uniqueness of whatever your challenge is. So DMAIC is a good process to get to some improvements, but it is not a project management structure in and of itself. They may work really well together, and sometimes they are a little bit at odds. If the project manager is trying to move things down due to constraints on time or budget, and yet the DMAIC project keeps telling you need to gather more data, do more measurements, do more analysis and things like that. So they may kind of be at odds. So you have to look at the what the book calls the suitable scale. And do you guys all know this story of Goldilocks? The fairy tale you tell kids?
For sure.
What's the story of Goldilocks, Ivana?
She's wandering through the woods and she finds a house, and she goes into the house, and at first she sees 3 bowls of porridge, and the first one's too hot and the second one's too cold and the third one is just right. And then I think there's 3 things, but the last thing I remember is the beds. She sees one bed that's too soft, one that's too hard, and one that's just right.
Yeah, I think
And
there's
then she falls asleep and the bears come home and catch her.
right. I think the other one is like chairs, and one is too big, one is too small, or one is
Right,
too,
and one is the right
yeah,
size.
one is too
Yeah.
whatever. So there's a series of things, and depending on how detailed you are, and then the ending is if you have little children, you say that the bears come home and then she runs away. And there's another ending that says the bears come home and have her for dinner. So that's not quite so palatable to little children when you just describe this little girl that they don't want her to be eaten. So you have to tell, but you have to couch how you tell it with your audience. But the whole purpose of that and the whole theme there is the just right, not too much, not too little, just right. And in life, we're always trying to find that kind of balance. And in these projects, it's often very difficult to get that sweet spot where it's not too big to manage, but it's big enough to make an impact. You can spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of resources on a project that you don't improve enough to pay, even to begin to pay back for the resources that it took to do that. If you've got, 3 people spending full time, or 3 equivalent heads spending full time for a month, and you come back and say, well, we saved 27 cents, unless you're making a bazillion of something, that 27 cents won't pay for the amount of time that it just took to identify that. So if it's too small to be meaningful, or too small to offset the cost of doing the project, and again, this is where the sponsor comes in, because you should know earlier on that, hey, the potential here, the potential savings is pretty small, and it may not be worth spending a lot of resources on, or it's so big that it's going to take 2 years to implement, and it's going to cost us $500,000 and blah 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 blah. How many of you work with ERP, MRP systems like Oracle or SAP or any of that kind of stuff? There's all kinds of small versions of that, like Deltek and Sage, and there's 100 other.
We have ones for patients here.
Okay.
And I guess going with what you're saying, we had planned on switching over to a different ERP. And we kind of went at it from a wholesale like sweeping change, without really beta testing it, putting it on just one computer and seeing what works for us. So after we spent a lot of money on that, a lot of time and energy trying to switch over, just to find out that it's really not practical. And we went back, and it was a really big waste of energy for the doctors.
Yeah, and that's frustrating for everybody on the team.
Yeah.
Frustrating for the people who worked really hard to try to make it work. Frustrating for the people who sponsored it in the first place and said, oh, this looks like the right solution. Frustrating for the vendor who's trying to sell you that and help you implement that. So that's a lose-lose kind of thing all the way around. And Aggie, you said you work with some of those systems?
I am familiar with SAP, but I work on Deltek's cost one mostly. And we mostly do ERP, but we acquired a manufacturing company. So we bought some modules for the manufacturing as well. And it was tough to put everyone on the same page with the acquisitions, because they might then used to doing stuff manually, or doing their own system that they created, like SharePoint, some workflows. But I would say now we are trying to just utilize more of the options that we have that everyone is now using our system. So much better.
A lot of companies go through a lot of pain with these kinds of systems. I have a client who is, luckily this is not what they hired me to do, but as I've been working with them on kind of like side projects, they've been trying to implement a paperless system first for their purchasing and then extending that into the financial system. And there's been some people dragging their feet along the way and not wanting to change. You think, why would anybody not want to go paperless? But there are people that are very comfortable with that, know that process in and out. They don't see a need to change it. And so they drag their feet, they make it difficult to implement something like that. So in this case, my client, the person that I deal with there primarily, saw this as, I'm sick of all this paper, moving papers around from requisitions to purchase orders to faxing this and getting confirmations back and all of that. And so she had this vision. So she worked really hard, and her first position when she kicked this off was as the purchasing manager. Now she's the vice president of finance. So she got promoted along the way because she was advocating for this project. So the first project she put in for the paperless system for the requisitions and everything was a resounding success. But then the next part, hooking that up with the financials, was out of her area of control. So she had some influence in that area, but not control. And they hired some people that picked a system that she was skeptical about, and it ended up imploding. And they had the same kind of thing, Alexander, as you were saying, they had to throw that one out and start over with another one. And then they got so far down with the second one, and with the salesperson who said, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. You know, the salespeople tell you everything is going to be fine and we can do all the things you want to do. And then they found out that, guess what, they can't. So now they're on their third iteration of that. Like I said, in the process, my client slash colleague slash friend now, because I've worked with her for a while, and again, this is not my area, but I've watched this happen, is now implementing the third version of this to try to get it right. So it takes good managers to do that, to know when to pull the plug and not keep spending money that is not going to be recouped and is not going to yield any positive results, and to scale it back or change horses or just cut the whole thing off. So you're looking for this this Goldilocks thing where it's just right. And a lot of these systems are very big. Some of them only do a tiny piece of that. So you want to look at this. If you've ever worked on one of these projects, they take on a life of their own. And I always tell my students that this is the best example of garbage in, garbage out. If your data in the system is not clean, then you will not get good output of that. You will not get good reports. You will not get good plans. You will not get good information, and everything will be much more painful. So you don't want to do that. So it's important to find that scale that's the right thing. And it requires a lot of adjustment sometimes, and tweaking, and in good project management. So project managers can say, hey, we're going too far this way. We're not going far enough, whatever. So you want to be able to identify the opportunity and not, go all out. Or not break the bank while you're trying to get some good results, and not throw out the baby with the bathwater just because you hit a snag and you need to work through some challenges. So a sponsor's job is to do all of that. So they talk about elephant hunting in the book, which is looking for the big things, making sure people have reasonable workloads. People on these projects, it can be exciting, it can be a lot of fun, but it's usually a lot of work. And if you don't give people a reasonable workload and give them some breaks from time to time, have a kind of a finite amount of time that it's going to take to do this, you're going to burn people out. People can work at a high level and extra hours and things for, some people for a few weeks, some people for a couple of months. Nobody can do it for 2 and 3 years. And if these projects go on and on and on without breaks or without adjusting workloads, then you're going to lose good people. So you have to make sure the workloads stay reasonable. You get enough projects in the pipeline. This is another area with implementing Lean and Six Sigma falls or fails. So companies very carefully pick the first pilot projects. Okay, this is, we're going to do a DMAIC project here. We're going to do a Six Sigma one here, and we're going to do another shorter kind of thing over here, a Kaizen type. So you do those and you get the results, but you've got nothing behind it. So you go through the process, you get a good result, you've trained people, but now you have nothing else for them to go apply this lessons learned and to keep learning how to implement these. So if you don't have projects behind those initial ones, if you do pick one that is going to either blow up and get too big or be too difficult to do, and say, okay, well, we're going to shelve that and then we'll work on this one in the meantime until we can go back and revisit that and figure out what we really do need, then people lose faith in the process because they say, we've done this, but now there's nothing else to do. So they made a big deal of this. They sent us to training. We've got all this information for Lean and Six Sigma, but we did it twice in 2 projects and there's nothing else to apply it to. So I guess we're done. And now they'll give us something else next year to do. So you really want to make sure you've got enough projects. And if you've got managers and senior managers that really understand Lean and Six Sigma, there will be no problem in identifying a long list of projects to go attack. And the harder thing to do generally is to prioritize that and say, when are we going to go after this? Where is the kind of the cost benefit of this? Where do we, is this one of the first 3 that we do, or do we wait even until next year because we think it's going to take some significant resources or. So again, you want to balance small and large projects for balance so that if you do some things and get them done quickly, you've got some things in the pipeline behind that to kind of feed through. That's that kind of pull system that we talked about. So as fast as they can do that. I got hired for a project. My undergrad is in engineering, and I was going to school, and I interviewed for a job at 3M, and I got a summer job, and I was thrilled to death and so excited about it. And it was a packaging job, and I had to design some packages for some parts that they did, and they had some packages, and they wanted to see if they could consolidate or do whatever. And this was my summer project. And so I was excited and I had no idea, but I went in and I went to work on it. I had some good help and from another person at 3M that was actually a packaging engineer and gave me some good coaching and helped me. And about 5 weeks into this project, I was done. And I was like, oh, now are they going to get rid of me? Did I do it too fast? Because it was supposed to be all summer long, like 3 months. And I'm like 5 weeks into it, not even halfway through what I thought it was going to be. And I'm done. And I was telling my manager the whole way. So I knew he wasn't surprised. And I didn't just say, okay, I don't have anything to do. Luckily, he saw that it was moving very quickly. And while I was wrapping that up, he got me some other projects to go work on. So he was able to keep me busy and interested and productive. So I really, in fact, I got so much accomplished that summer that they kept me on during the school year. So I was going to school full-time and working part-time because I was able to get a lot accomplished. So it was a good thing for me. And I was student rate. So I was cheap help for them, and it worked out I worked for there for 2 years, my last 2 years of college. So you can find things, but you need somebody who can find these projects and keep feeding that pipeline, because again, you don't want people to stop making improvements and to think, okay, we're done. We did all we can do with this. Good people and people who really embrace these concepts will say, oh, I work over here and my real job is this job over here, and we can apply some of these things there. And they start it takes on a life of its own with people that really buy into this and learn these tools and techniques and say, I know some other places we can apply it. But again, you need that oversight from the senior levels to say, how many resources can we invest in this? How much money do we have? How much time do we have to do these things? So the benefits are really important. We're looking at, what we can do to get benefits for the company. How are we going to measure those? And how are we going to translate that back to the business as this is a positive outcome? So we've done the DMAIC process, we've defined, we've analyzed, we've improved, and now we're going to go back and do a post-implementation review, which is another big step. So we've improved and put the controls in place, but now we want to go back and analyze what the actual results were and what that looks like to the business, not only for the next month, but for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. And sometimes you get a project that says, oh, this was great, we did this. Now we see that we could take this further and do like a subsequent project or a phase 2 thing that's going to take this and do this. Or we say, this is pretty clean and wrapped up. We've got the controls in place. So this should yield savings of this much dollars in materials, in labor hours, in machine hours, in space, in employees, whatever the thing is. And this is how we're going to book this. And we're going to come back every month or every quarter and check on it. But we know that this is pretty much wrapped up. And then we say, okay, what's next with that after we do that post-implementation review? And part of that is saying, again, as I said earlier, where else can we take this learning and apply it? One of the things that's important to do after any of these projects, and a project management class too, if you get the chance to take a project management class, one of the last things that you do after you complete the project and you've checked all the boxes and say, we met all our goals, we did everything. Now you say, what did we learn from this? So this lessons learned, this documentation about, okay, if we had this to do over, what would we do differently? What would we start earlier? What would we not do at all? What are the things the takeaways in how we approach this process, that because now we have full view of this, right? And this is very much what I call a rear view mirror activity. So we're looking backwards and saying, this is how far we've come. These are the things that we did. Now, if we were starting another project today, tomorrow, what would we do differently? And what are the things that we can incorporate that we now know that we didn't know when we started, and make sure that we can do the next one faster, cheaper, without as many problems, without as many hiccups or whatever. So those are important activities to do. And it's a lot of companies I see not doing that at all, to be honest. Other companies will do that, but they don't take good notes at those types of meetings. Today, it's easier with, you say, okay, we're just going to do this as a Zoom call, whether we're here in person or not, but we're going to record all of it, right? So if you've got it recorded, then you have at least a record of it and you can go back to that. But it's really more important to do more than just record the thing. It's like, pictures of family members. Oh, we had a reunion and we took a bunch of pictures. They're in my phone, but I've never looked at them again. And I know there were some cool ones in there because the day we took them was this, this, and this. But you don't ever go pull them out and make copies for your aunt and your cousin or your children or whatever. And so they kind of just go by the wayside, right? Well, yeah, that was a good memory, but the pictures aren't there at the ready to say, oh yeah, here it is. So you want to do that with the lessons learned. You want to document it. You want to go update the processes. You want to update your DMAIC process. You want to update your processes that were affected by this. Any of your internal processes like your financial budgeting or your headcount or your material ordering or any of those kinds of things that are affected. You want to make sure you cover that gamut of things and actually update anything that needs to be, or at least capture those things that you said, if this, then this, or when this happens, here are the things to do, or here are the things not to do. Here's where we got stuck before, and we would like for somebody else to not get stuck at the same point. So you want to share that information so that everyone learns from that and can continue to get better. Because if I learn that, I work on a project, I'm looking at this side of the screen and I've got Alexander, Nanar, Marcus, and Nikon there. So if I work on this with you guys and we all take these lessons learned from it, that's great. But if we don't capture that and make that available, we might have Aggie, Ivana, Blake, Aaliyah, and Latoya doing a project next week, next month, next year that should be aware of those things. And if they're not, they're going to learn those same things all over again. So learning things is good, but how painful the learning has to be, it doesn't have to be, incredibly painful for you to learn those lessons. And if you can spare somebody else the pain by saying, hey, we did this and either it worked or it didn't, and here's why, then you can maybe spare them some time, some pain, and the company some money of trying to implement another improvement in another area. So it's important that, again, you report regularly your progress and monitor that progress. So we talked early on in the semester about those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? The 5 W's and the H. Stay out of the weeds. Do you guys all know what I mean when I say stay out of the weeds? Don't get stuck in the minutia of what you're working on, but be able to pull yourself up. Sometimes you have to be in the weeds to sort through things, but then you have to get up above so that it's like the forest and the trees, right? Sometimes you have to be pretty high up in the forest to be able to see just how many trees are there and how extensive this thing is. So you want to stay out of the minutia and don't get stuck in the swamp area of anything. Don't spend a lot of time when you do reviews on things that are on track. Give yourself credit. Hey, this part of the team is working really well. They're on schedule, they're on budget, everything's great. But over here is where we're having the problem. So you're not diminishing the work that they do or saying that it isn't hard for them to do that, but you want to spend time in these reviews talking about what isn't on track and where you might need assistance or help, and always be prepared to ask for the help. So, we really need a person from accounting who knows this, this, and this. We really need somebody from the manufacturing engineering who understands this process from a technical level and can help us design a tool to do XYZ. So bring these review sessions should be looking at, how's the overall project? What are the things that are going well? And now let's dig into the things that aren't going well, because that's where the team is going to benefit from this review. If you're just standing there saying, oh, everything's good, everything's good, everything's good, then if it goes down south, then you're going to look not so good. And if it is going great, that's good. But the sooner that you highlight areas that are at risk, that might have problems, that are potentially going to be off track, or where you're stuck, then the quicker you can get help. This is not a cover your backside exercise where you say, oh yeah, everything's going really well, and then at the end you say, yeah, but we only saved 27 cents. So that's not really the answer that the higher ups are looking for, and that's not really the answer you want to give them. If you can tell them early on, hey, this is not looking like a big money saver, or in order to get that money saved, we need to take a left turn here and go in a bit of a different direction and dig into something else. So you want to make sure you do that. You guys all know stoplight charts? Anybody not know stoplight charts?
I don't think I'm that familiar with them.
Thank you for your honesty, Nana. So it's important that you guys all know stoplights, right? Red, yellow, green. Red means stop. Green means go like normal, and yellow means you better be slowing down or there's something going wrong. So it's often good in updates with these DMAIC projects or, the Plan, Do, Study Act, any of those things, as in project management, to use red, yellow, green. And that they indicate just what we know with traffic lights, that if it's green, it's good. And this is, again, where you don't want to spend a lot of time because it's green, everything's working well, we're making progress in that area, it's all good. You can highlight and say, here's the good things that have come out of that so far. That's great. Okay. And then the yellow things that say this is at risk. So there's some issues here. We either have encountered a problem and we don't know what the impact is yet. We are slowing up because of this reason. We need to go back and take some more data because of this reason. We did the analysis, but it's inconclusive. So we need to go look at it from another perspective or something like that. And then red means we are in deep stuff. We're not getting where we need to be. We're not getting the answer, and we're not seeing the progress. Companies sometimes use an orange in there. So the red means I'm dead in the water. It's not going anywhere. The orange means we are at the real danger zone. And if we don't do something, then we are going to be dead in the water. And the yellow still means it's, we understand, we've identified a risk, we understand it, we have a mitigation plan, or we have some plans to address that and manage the risk, but we're going to watch it. It's on a real monitor, closely monitor this area. So you can add that other orange in there too, if you want. But that's a very quick way to convey to the people that are, have been assembled to look at the status and the progress of the project, to say, how's it going? How's it going, guys? Okay, I got this many reds and this many yellows and this many greens, and or no reds, no problems, no showstoppers, as they say. So all of that's good. You want those key stakeholders in there in those regular meetings so that you don't have surprises. The worst thing that you can have is to not have somebody in that meeting, that review meeting, that finds out about something, either good or not so good, from another member, and says, why didn't you invite me to that? You know that I do X, Y, Z. So you can't always get everybody, but you want to think about that from a pretty broad perspective. Who are the people that need to be involved? And if you go into another area, or you have to do a deeper dive into something else, then if that adds stakeholders, then you need to bring those into your review meetings. You want to do these in a timely fashion and make sure that you're addressing issues as they come up in a timely fashion, and always continue to be refining and reviewing your structure, your process, all the activities that you're doing to make sure that you continue to make progress. But again, if you work on one of these teams, they can be a lot of fun. They can be a ton of work. And some of the most fun times I've had at work are working on some of these problem teams, when you're really trying to get something improved or better, or even a product launch, when you launched a project a year ago and now you're launching the next one and you want to be better. So you're looking at the lessons learned, you're taking all those things into account. You're doing something similar that's been done before, but you're trying to do it in a leaner, cleaner, faster manner. So what can we do differently? How do we do this? So when you're on one of those teams and you do a lot of work, it really is nice to get a pat on the back and get that recognition and get some kind of reward. Of course, money's always good, but money isn't what motivates everybody. So you want to make sure that you've got motivating rewards planned and recognition in there. It's a key communication tool for the team. Hey, this team of Ivana, Nana, and Blake did a great job on this. And so we want to recognize them for all the hard work they put in. And here's the results that they were able to achieve through their team that did this, this, and this. So you want to be able to communicate that. Some companies have newsletters. Some companies do things in like staff meetings where they recognize those things. Sometimes you have all hands meetings where you recognize those. Whatever your company's culture does that allows that, you want to make sure that things are included in there. It will reinforce the desired behaviors, the performance, and it will also encourage other people to volunteer for some of those things when you say, hey, we got another project coming up, who wants to work on that? But you don't want to do the same kind of rewards over and over, because that gets boring and people don't appreciate it. So I worked at a company for a while, and they started giving out movie tickets. So you get 2 movie tickets if you did something good, and you know, here's 2 movie tickets. So it was like to AMC theaters or something, and they were local. And the first couple of times you see that, hey, that's really cool. Now you can go to the movies, you know. And you don't have to pay premium price. You can go at the time, and you can go see the first run movies that are the higher prices and whatever. But when that's all you do, and everybody, you know, after 6 months, almost everybody in the team has gotten a pair of movie tickets, it gets to be old and it's not as big a deal anymore. So you want to switch things around. So, you know, movie tickets are a great thing to do occasionally. Gift cards are, companies do like Visa cards so you can go out to dinner. That Amazon is a big thing. Starbucks is a big thing. Actual cash money is always a good thing, but sometimes just thank you communications, both private and public. I had a manager one time who was really, really good at going around and thanking people that were working on certain projects individually. He would go out to their workspace and walk around, and he knew, you know, who was doing what, and he would just go up to them. And we had cubicles, and he would go up to them in front of everybody and just say, you know, hi, Aggie. I just wanted to say, I saw that presentation last week, and I'm really impressed with the work you guys are doing. And I just wanted to say thank you, because I know it's been a lot of hard work and you put a lot of hours into this, and it shows, and the project's coming around really good. And I want you to know that if you have any problems, you know, come to me, let me know, make sure you come back to our steering committee, and we'll get you the help you need, because we want to see this through. So if you do things like that, that little bit of public recognition and the individual outreach can go a long way. Now, if you only do that and tell people they do a good job and never give them anything physical like Starbucks cards or movie tickets or better, you know, or a check of some kind, then that's going to be, it's going to wear thin. But that was a big deal for this senior manager to do that. Of course, companies know that people run on their stomachs, right? So pizza parties, bagels, when everyone's in the office, and not everyone is in the office these days. So that's a little challenge. When I was on, when we were kind of on lockdown in the Zoom era of 2020, I had one client who sent everybody like DoorDash or Uber Eats or something a credit. And so our meeting was going to be at, you know, Thursday at lunch. So the idea was that everybody was supposed to get their Uber Eats lunch ordered by Wednesday so that you could get it delivered, and we would have this virtual lunch. And it was kind of fun, and it didn't always work out perfect, but 100%, but it was a nice thing to do. You know, you're at home, most of us, and we have food in the house, thankfully, but it was like, okay, go get yourself a treat, something that you wouldn't normally do for lunch. Nanar.
I just wanted to share an example that's like the complete opposite. When I started working at the place I now work, everyone was like, yeah, we're gonna go out for a department meeting. I go out and I'm under the impression, okay, we're going on a department meeting, like you're gonna get treated. Everyone had to pay their own portion. And like, thank God Apple Pay exists, honestly. And I was just like, okay, this is something new that I never expected, but sure. In my mind, I'm like, at least don't call it a department meeting. Like, that's very misleading. But I don't know. I just wanted to share like a very opposite experience.
You know, thank you for sharing that, because something that could have been very motivational and very fun ended up being like what the hell? And what the whatever else you want to put in there. So that if that was the situation, they should have been very clear that this is a gathering. It is not, it's what do they call it? No host kind of thing. So we're not doing anything. We're just going to get a venue and let you do what you want to do. Or to say, we're going to buy some appetizers and you guys can get whatever cocktails you want or drinks or something like that. So they could have done it much, much better with a lot of different options and not blindsided you that, oh yeah, here we are. I hope you brought your wallet, because if you want anything to eat or drink, it's on you. And
Yeah, they didn't even like tell me anything. Like I didn't even get to choose the place. I didn't even like where we went. But I was like, I'm not gonna say anything. And I'm like looking and I'm like, no one even bothered to like say, yeah, that's everyone's time to contribute or whatever. I'm like, okay, I guess I should read the room. It's time for me to, I guess, pay my portion. But yeah, that's that. Just like you said, they could have been much clearer about it all, but
yeah,
guess
and wait,
yeah.
and you don't want to wait till the bill comes and you say, oh, I have to do this. I ordered that nice glass of wine because you told me to order whatever looks good, and I ordered that $20 glass of wine, and now I'm stuck with the bill when I'm thinking that I'm just gonna, be able to walk out of here with that. So yeah, that is really poor. And that is, again, thanks for sharing it, because that will wipe out tons and tons of goodwill and good work and motivation, and make people very frustrated, and people leave for less than that. People will leave companies for treatment that is not that out to lunch, and not that I can't think of the word I'm looking for, just brain dead, that when they're not thinking about that stuff. So the food is a good motivator. And I've been to lots of those things where they say, hey, we can't, we're the X company, we're a corporation, we're not buying drinks. You can have iced tea or water or something, but if you want to drink, it's on your own, whether it's a soft drink or a liquor thing, it's on your own. But we will provide, appetizers provided is all you have to say. And then, oh, okay, appetizers, but no drinks. All right, that's fine. And then as long as you know what you're in for, it's okay. And it's really bad when they make those things mandatory. So it's one thing if you say we're all having lunch at, XYZ. And so in the middle of the day, you typically come to work and it says, all right, we're all going to go to lunch. So unless you have a food allergy or a real issue with food, and then you should be able to work that out somehow. And we're going to go to lunch and come back, then that's okay. But if it's after work and it's mandatory, people do not like that. People, if you say mandatory 6 o'clock here, it's like, what the heck? That's not my normal work hours. Some people say, fine, great, whether they're buying or not, but you need to take into account the culture of the organization that exists and how you're trying to morph it to something else. And the worst thing you can do is what happened to you in that example, which is you make it worse. So whatever they were trying to celebrate was not a celebration at all. It was a big kind of a poke in the eye.
There's one more thing I just feel like I should share also, is that we also went out with like a supervisor, and and we couldn't return back to the office until she came back. And so we ended up staying half an hour longer than our actual lunch should have been. And they didn't tell us that we had to make up for that half an hour, but I stayed and I made up for it. And then like my other colleagues didn't. And now at the start of this month, they're being told that they're going to deduct that half hour that they basically overstayed on lunch. And so this is what was happening today. And this like created a very bad situation, and things are not looking good. Like other stuff happened too, but just to add the cherry on top. But yeah, I rest my case now. That's that.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for sharing it, because again, people leave jobs for that kind of stuff. And in today's world where the unemployment's pretty low and jobs are available, people start looking where they weren't even looking before. So as a manager, you need to not be brain dead about this stuff. Certificates are nice too. You can get some nice blank certificates off the internet. We used to do this for suppliers a lot. We had some that we had either made up or that we found and kind of customized. We would have it printed on nice paper, multicolored and things like that, put it in a frame, not an expensive frame, but a frame, and take it to the supplier. And then you'd go back the next time, and that certificate was hanging in the wall. They were proud to say, hey, we are recognized by Acme Company for doing XYZ. And it's an easy thing to do, especially for a company or for a group where you can do something like that. And for individual people too, people like to get recognized for different things. So here's the, outstanding job for blah, 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 blah. But again, you have to be careful. If it's like, the third grade where everybody gets a chance to be the student of the week by the end of the semester, then, when the Billy the Creep is the student of the week, everybody says, well, who cares? If Billy can get this, it doesn't mean anything because everybody knows he's a creep. So it needs to have some weight behind it. And these are also good opportunities for training, development. It's good for travel. Let people, some people like to travel. And so, hey, there's a seminar in Las Vegas or there's a seminar in New York that we'd like somebody to go to. So here's an opportunity to go learn more about this and share. And when I sent people to those things, the responsibility of the person that went, I said, you got to go and you got to take notes and you got to come back and you got to train you got to spend an hour or 30 minutes or something with the rest of the team, telling them what you took away from that presentation, that workshop or whatever. So because, and I learned that the hard way because I sent somebody one time to a presentation, a workshop kind of thing. I think it was in Las Vegas, and I found out they took their spouse and they didn't really attend any of the stuff that they were supposed to attend. So they just took it as a paid vacation and didn't really get anything take away from that. So I said, okay, well, we're not going to do that again. You've got a responsibility to come back and share what you learned with the rest of the team. So these projects don't always go smoothly. So you have to make sure you're not just stuck and not getting unstuck. You have to say, what is the reasonable amount of time and resources we're spending? If it's not progressing, then you need to figure out, can you change it? Sometimes you have to go back and redefine the problem statement. Sometimes you have to go get more data. Sometimes you have to pull the plug. So what is working, what's not? You look at all of the resources, the time, the space, the people, the equipment, the money it's costing, the tools, whatever. If you can't make the progress and can't keep progress being made over some reasonable amount of time, then maybe you need to pull the plug. Sometimes you just need to get the obstacle or the barrier removed. I don't know if this is in the book. I can't remember because I didn't, but I think it is from the authors. I can't remember where I got it. But weighing the pig doesn't make it any fatter, right? So you can keep weighing this pig over and over and over, but that doesn't change its weight. It's not getting bigger because you're weighing it. So what are you doing to this? If you want that pig to be fatter so you can take it to the stockyard, then you need to make sure that you're doing something to feed it to get it to move in that direction and get the result you want. So people and teamwork is a key tenet of Lean. You want to make sure you've got your subject matter experts, those most familiar and experienced with those. So include those people, recognize those people, respect those people. That's very important. Build up a culture that allows for change, that embraces change, that is not afraid of change, but that takes time. And you can't do that with one project one time. Use these tools over and over, sometimes even in simpler arenas or simpler applications. When you think we don't really have to do that, you use these tools like the DMAIC just to get people used to thinking that way. Okay, did we define it? Did we analyze it? Did we measure it? Did we figure out the improvement, and then do we put the controls in place? So if you get people thinking like this, then when they get tougher things, they automatically stop and do those steps. So it's a process that you want to learn and that you really want to imprint on the whole culture of the organization. You need people who are good mentors and coaches, as well as managers and project managers. So you need to challenge the team, whether it's an exec level or not. Exec levels are great to bring in as reinforcements. And others, subject matter experts who have knowledge or who have good experiences. One of the places I worked was a pretty big company, but they had people, when they rolled out things to new different departments or different divisions, they would bring people that had gone through this before to come out and talk to the team and say, hey, you know, we want you to know, we just went through this in the last 6 months, and this was our problem, and this was our project, and this is what we were able to do with that. And so these tools work, and this is how we use them. We're available to help if you need. You know, we don't work here, we don't do this day in and day out, but we have a lot of experience that we learned from doing this, and we're happy to share. We're happy to be brought in if you need an extra set of eyes to look at something. A lot of these projects are handled like workshops. So you've got maybe a dedicated cubicle, a room, whatever, maybe just a wall that is your wall that you can stick things on, and sticky notes and all that. Obeya is a Japanese word that means a big or a great room. So sometimes there is a room that's dedicated to that, or that is not maybe dedicated to that, but that's where you use that wall or that whiteboard to put things on, and it doesn't come down. So if you, like, when you get these big flow charts sometimes that are, 6 feet long and 4 feet high, then you put it on the wall, and everyone knows, do not remove that from that wall. That's where that stays, and that's where you have for reference to do the work you need to do and do all those changes. And then when the project's finished, then it comes down. But it can be a room that other people use in the meantime, but that is where you keep certain documentation and certain sticky notes and flow charts and whatever else you need to have that. Brainstorm, all of these things are good to have out in the open and have people have easy access and be able to reference them very quickly. You can use virtual rooms, and companies do this routinely. Dropbox, Google Drive, shared files, SharePoint, all that kind of stuff. All those tools are good. So don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good tools out there. You want to make sure that all the decision makers, who the decision makers are, they know who they are. So you've got clear roles and responsibility for people, anybody that's working in and with the team that's responsible for the making decisions. And then you talk about how you're going to make decisions before you get into the throes of the project. So, and good Lean Six Sigma organizations, by default, they delegate to the lowest appropriate level. So it's not always the senior manager making the decisions. They know that the decisions are made at whatever level is appropriate. So if you need budget approval, then so go get somebody who has budget authorization. But if you need some resources in people, or there is some budget supplied, and you're going to buy something that's inexpensive, then you don't have to get 6 layers of approval. You get somebody who's authorized to go do that. And somebody has a credit card and can go down to Home Depot and buy some of the things you need, and that's fine. So you have to set those up ahead of time and know how that is. And then the team needs to be informed of those things. Consensus is a tenet of Lean. It's one of the primary things. And have we talked about consensus in here? Do we know the difference between consensus and other decision making?
Consensus is when everyone kind of agrees to move forward. It might not be your top choice, but ultimately everyone agrees that this is the right thing to do, and we move on.
Exactly. Everyone at least supports the the decision that's made. So it may not be, as Ivana said, it may not be your first choice. It may not be what you really hoped for or that you really like, but you understand that that is the best path forward and you support that. And more importantly, when you go back to outside of that team that you made that decision on, you are positive about that decision and you are supportive of that decision. It undermines everything, just like the that have to go to lunch or whatever, and now you have to pay your own bill. If you say, okay, yeah, I'll live with that, and then you go back to your team and say, these guys are a bunch of dopes. I told them that wasn't the right thing to do, and I understand why they made that decision, but it's still not a good decision, and it's not going to be right. And so if you have people like that, you don't want them on the team, and that is not in a lean Six Sigma culture environment kind of thing. It's got to be people who are positive and supportive. It doesn't mean you have to say, oh yeah, that was the best decision. It just has to be, yes, we made a decision with all the information we had. We agreed this is the best path forward and this is where we're going to go. So you don't have to, if you're excited, then you can show that excitement and you think it's great. But if you don't, you still have to be at least neutral, if not positive about, yes, we worked through this and made this decision collectively, and so now we all agreed to support this and go forward in this direction. So that's an important thing to do. It takes a lot more time because it is not let's show of hands, right? There's 5 of us, and if 3 of us pick this, then that's fine. That's a majority rules. That's not consensus. And so you don't really want, some things can be made like that. There's a whole I do a whole presentation on decision making and what can be made, what can be delegated, what can be made by show of hands. And are we going to eat at Outback or are we going to eat at Quiznos? So it's not really there's not much difference there. I mean, there is, but it's not like it's a deal breaker. So if you want to go to restaurant A, then you raise your hand. And if you want to go to restaurant B, you raise your hand. And then wherever most people agree, wherever most people want to go, that's where we're going to go. So it's not a meaningful decision. It's not a long-term impact unless somebody says, hey, I can't eat meat. And so you want to go to Outback, and I guess maybe they have fish and chicken. I don't know. But as long as you don't have those kinds of situations, some of those decisions can easily be made. All right, show of hands, right? So that's a fine thing to do. Other times it needs to be more. Go ahead, Ivana.
Can I ask a question in this sort of situation in terms of decision making and trust? What do you do if you work with someone who doesn't have that trust or is consistently combative in these situations, to sort of help build consensus rather than unnecessary conflict?
So you need to understand what is driving their combativeness, or why they are they just trying to be a pain, a thorn in people's, or is because they don't like something or someone? Is it, I've worked with people who are difficult, and sometimes they will say, well, I'm just trying to, be devil's advocate and just make sure that we're doing the right thing. There's a way to do that, and then there's a way that just says, no, I'm just trying to be a pain, right? And nobody typically admits I'm just trying to be a pain. They put something up like, oh, well, I'm just throwing out things in case somebody else thinks of that. And so you have to really get to their motivation. What is their sticking point? So that's why the consensus takes a lot longer time. Okay, why are you saying that? And what is your concern if we go in this direction? If you don't know people and don't have some trust, then that's really difficult to do. So you're trying to build the trust and whatever. So then you want to go to credibility. You want to go to, sometimes you have to go in there and say, look, this is, this is my background. This is my experience. This is why I say that this is the right path forward. And you have to have everybody in the room do that kind of thing to say, all right, this is my experience. This is mine. And that can help people that are not trusting and not knowing who they're dealing with. Sometimes you have to sit them down and say, look, you're not, you have to look at this as a bigger picture. It's not just your perspective. It's not just your department that matters here. We all have a stake in this. So asking questions, getting them comfortable, being honest with what you're thinking, and somebody else saying, hey, this is not my first choice either. I would rather do X, but I understand that Y is what we need to do now for this because of this. So you talk it through. And if you can take the time, build the trust in the discussion. So this is where a good facilitator helps. This is where a good sponsor can come in and say, okay, what's the stumbling block here? And you say, we can't reach a consensus on this. Okay, then a good facilitator will start asking people about, what is your position? What is your concern? Okay, and then validating the concern. Okay, I understand why you're worried about that, what that risk is. What can we do about that? Is there a way we can mitigate that risk? Is that a genuine possibility? Is that, what is the percentage or what is the probability of that happening? If it's a high probability and it's a high impact, then you might say, then, we need to consider that. But it might be something that's a big impact, but the probability of it happening is low. Then you have to say, okay, we still need to put some checks and balances in place. What can we do? So sometimes you can get somebody comfortable with a scenario that they weren't, because you address their root concern, which is the risk or the danger or the impact that could come to them, or that they at least feel heard. And sometimes it's just a matter of that everybody wants to feel like their opinion is heard and considered. And sometimes
That's true.
Sometimes it takes a long time, and sometimes you reach an impasse and you might have to go back to an escalation area and get somebody else involved to help resolve that. Or you can, if you're a sponsor, you can say, I understand, I hear you, but it's my responsibility to keep this project moving. And so in order to do that, I'm going to go with, with this path, because this is what's going to keep us moving forward. And, I appreciate you sharing that and honoring that. So it can be done in a way where that person just doesn't run off mad, but it's hard, and it takes time, and it takes somebody who's experienced to work through that. And that's a good time to go get a facilitator or a neutral party, or a consultant to come in and do that kind of stuff. So it's the consensus decisions are the best. And like I say, that not every decision requires consensus, but the big ones typically work better when you do have that. Again, look at the voice of the business to each of the stakeholders in the team, be able to address everybody's perspective, make sure people's perspectives get heard, get out on the table, get validated. And, if you can address those, alleviate concerns, then those are, all good things to do. Trust is important, but it does take time to build trust. And sometimes you get a team together and they don't have much time to work together. And so they don't know each other well. They haven't had really that time to build that trust. So sometimes you really got to take a risk on the people that you're working with, and hope that you're reading them right, and hope that the sponsors have put the right people in the room to make the right decisions and come up with good decisions. So acting trustworthy, following up, following through, maintaining integrity, keeping that as much dialogue as you can have, talking it through, you know, looking out for the good of the team and not and the business, and not for any particular function or any particular person is a good thing. And then again, walking the talk. So 3 different perspectives there, similar, supportive, they need to all kind of work together. So that's what I have in terms of slides and whatever. I've given you the study guide. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else. I don't remember how many questions are on the test. It's all multiple choice. So, you know, it's not, I've tweaked it a little bit from last year, but in the averages last year were, you know, it wasn't a devastating test where everybody got 50% or anything like that. So if you work through the problems, and a lot of you did, then you should do fine on the test. Again, if you have gaps in the homework, and I'll give you one last chance to fill those gaps in, turn something in on Canvas, or tell me that you sent it to me differently, and I will go and grade that and add that in. But I'm not taking anything past next Monday. So you can do that. If it was a group project and you didn't get with your group and you want to turn something in solo, I'm okay with that. But next week it should be a group project, and hopefully everybody's got at least one partner to work with, and you can do a presentation after the exam.
I have a question about the group project.
Okay.
For the PowerPoint presentation, is our goal to answer the question on the case study and present it in the form of PowerPoint and then speak to it?
Yeah, PowerPoints are good. That's the best. That's my preferred format. What I would like you to do is, in a couple of slides, and I'm not looking for 30 slides, right? I'm looking for some overview of the case. So whatever the case is, you need to kind of spell out, these are the key areas that relate to some of the topics that we've talked about throughout the semester. You want to answer the questions in the context of the slides. I prefer that you don't do, you know, a whole slide for question 1, state the question and state the answer. I would really rather have you address that in terms of looking at the overall case and, you know, what their objectives are. So you can, you know, refer to the questions, but talk about it in that. And I would like you to say also, because these cases are never clean and closed up. So what else would you like to know? What other questions that the author doesn't ask that you ask about? What about this? What about that? What are you concerned about? What are you skeptical about? What would you like to validate? What other questions would you like to ask that they didn't ask? Or what other information would you like to have in a perfect world if you were really going to go after this? So any of those that kind of sparks you when you read the case through, add in some of that so that I get the sense that you really dug into the case, and more than just, you know, short answers on the 4 or 5 questions that the author posed.
Okay, and how long do you want us each present, like to have an idea of how much
We've
information?
got, I think there's 4 teams. There might be 5, but I don't think we ended up with 5. So like 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. If you could go probably as long as 15, but I don't think these cases are not 8 pages long and, you know, full of stuff. So I think they're meaty enough to chew on and get a good 10 or 12 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
And then, you know, you want to wrap up with any additional risks, any conclusions that you draw, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Does that help?
That very much so, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And then lastly, from today's lecture, could you share the slides with us? Because I did not see them.
Oh, they're not in Canvas? I'll put them in Canvas right now.
Okay.
And then I'll post
I
I'm
think
sorry?
you stop at the chapter 9 for the chapter 8 on the PowerPoint.
So 7 and 8 is in the, but these 15, whatever it is, 15. Okay, I'll add the slides tonight, and I will post the recordings tomorrow. Because after we're finished, it takes it a while to spool, you know. And I don't usually sit in my office and wait for it to spool. So that I'll do it in the morning. And I'll update the Excel file that has the links in it as well. Nanar?
I just have a quick question about the exam itself. So for the most part, you said, I mean, not for the most part, but it's going to be like multiple choice questions, and then we would basically just like focus on the slides, the study guide. How much focus should we put on like all the details in the book?
Well, I hope you read the book. And if you didn't,
Yeah.
it's kind of late to be reading the whole book. And you know, there's slides that I pulled out what I thought was important, and I gave you the study guide that said these are kind of the key points. So they pretty much align to the test.
Okay.
So yeah, I wouldn't go back and try to memorize the book. I would start with the study guide and then see what you think. I don't ask questions like, what do I want to say? So I might say, which one of these is not one of the wastes, right? So you don't have to memorize them necessarily, but you need to recognize them. And if I put, you know, leftover food in there, it's not quite that obvious, but it's one that says this doesn't belong here. So you need to recognize those. I will give you formulas for the control limits if you. And there are a couple problems on that, so you will have formulas for those.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, then you're excused for tonight. Have a great week, and I will see you Monday. And if you have questions about the cases in the meantime, text me, email me, and I'll answer them.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.